Shannon, I was reading your research and you point out that if you had tried to buy an iPhone 13 at the same time last year, you'd get it much more quickly than if you tried to buy an iPhone 14 Pro model right now, Christmas period 2022. What's going on for Apple?
Well, I mean, clearly there are issues with production, and everybody's seen the videos and what's going on in China right now. I think Apple is working as quickly as they can to help Foxconn and Hanhai basically restart production. I would say they have people on the ground that they're trying to help the employees and fix some of the issues. But Apple did put out a press release a few weeks ago, basically saying there was going to be some challenges with supply. And I think what we're looking at basically is a situation where right now, if you order on Apple.com, you're going to get your phone before the end of the year. So I'm watching to see when that actually shifts into January, and at that point, then that revenue is not going to actually hit in the December quarter, and it'll actually shift over into the March quarter. I don't think at this point we've really seen demand destruction.
Yeah.
I think that the bigger issue that you're seeing right now is just a supply issue.
You have an outperform rating on the stock, $184 price target. That's well above the 148 where we are now at the moment, Shannon. Just talk to us about the risks to the upside or the downside here. Is it more likely, are you worried not only about the supply chain headaches, but sort of the PR hit that a company such as Apple has by having so much of its supply chain in China, and indeed the sort of human cost of that? Or is that ultimately not a key concern for you?
Well, look, I think it's always been a risk for Apple. I mean, Apple has a very good relationship with governments around the world. They employ an awful lot of people. I think there's like 1.7 billion people, or billion, that would be a lot, 1.7 million people that are employed around the factory area. And it's not just the factory, right? It's the shop down the street that makes the widget that goes in the phone, and then the one that makes the glue. And they have a really strong ecosystem of production, and it is a risk, because whenever you have something in one area, you're going to be susceptible to issues. But I think Apple has shown during the pandemic that they were able to come in and with their partners and manufacture. They have a lot of partners that help them with the manufacturing. They are shifting some manufacturing to India, although that will take a long time. I mean, the way it's been described is, they've spent 15 years building a supply chain in China, and you can't just rip and replace that overnight. And I don't think they would want to. I mean, China is an important market for them as well. So
Yes.
From the standpoint of the Chinese government, it's important, and then to keep people employed, and then from an Apple perspective, obviously they're pretty reliant at this point.
Shannon, we've been excited to have you on because you cover the world of hardware, but that encompasses many companies. A name that's jumped out at me is HP Inc. and up to 6,000 jobs cut over the next 3 years. What's your assessment of job cuts in the world you cover, and also just financial discipline in response to kind of a slowdown in the end markets?
It's interesting. So this is the Credit Suisse. It's our 26th annual conference that we're holding out here. We have 1,300 attendees. And actually, I interviewed the CFO of HP today. So, I think HP's in an interesting situation. You've come out of the pandemic where PCs were elevated and everybody went out. You had a hybrid work, and so people needed a PC, they needed a printer. And now we're in a bit of a situation where they're digesting things. But the other thing to keep in mind with HP is that they have certain pillars of growth that they're looking at. And one of that is peripherals. They bought Poly. It closed a few weeks ago. You've also got 3D printing. They're focused on a number of different areas. And one of the things that they are doing with this restructuring is really trying to position all the systems and their sales strategy and manufacturing such that they're able to support where they see growth coming from in the future. Because, I think they are cognizant of, and frankly, investors are cognizant of the fact that printers are in secular decline. I mean, they can manage the secular decline, and they may be a share gainer there over time. But, you've got that. And then PCs are they're going to be in a cycle. We had a big up cycle during the pandemic, and now we're in a digestion phase. So, I think mature tech companies, which I tend to cover a lot of, are constantly trying to reduce costs, optimize, and manage for the future. Because again, when you don't grow very much or you start to decline a bit, the way to drive incremental cash flow and incremental earnings is basically through, cost reductions and optimization of your infrastructure.
Talk to us among these companies, Apple, Dell, Pure Storage, a lot of these companies you cover. We talk a lot about on the show the geopolitics, and of course, Apple has been swirled in that when it comes to China. Just talk to us in 30 seconds about the App Store. How worried are you about the revenues from that?
Well, I think the App Store, there's one of the reasons why it outperformed during the pandemic was because people were home and people were playing games, and that's a good way that they generate revenue. We're no longer home playing games. I mean, this conference that I'm at, it's packed with people. People are roaming around. We're interacting. We're traveling. We're doing other things. The other thing, on an offset to what's going on in China right now is that you do have a situation where if people are at home and they're, because of COVID restrictions,
All right.
we may see a little bit of an upside there.